Uh, all right. Thank you everyone for being here today. This is actually the very second time we meet for the Lunarla Talks. This is a new series that I'm creating with you, in which we're going to explore all the things that are related with the well-being and living well, together with the women that I personally find extremely inspiring, but they also come from very different industries, in different sectors, and they can just give us insight on what is their opinion about this topic. Today, specifically, we have somebody that I collaborate with for 6 months. We are now entering, I feel like, in a new kind of relationship. The two of us, it's more friends, more than collaborators, which feels very, very exciting. She's a sustainability consultant. She's a meditation teacher. She's a great adventure traveler. And very recently, she also became a coach. So she can surely tell us everything about all of these different things and how they blend all together according to her. So I would like to welcome Anastasia as the very second guest.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Julia, for having me.
No worries at all. All right, so I will say let's get started straight into the first question. So tell a little bit about your journey. How did you end up being so many different things that I already know they are very well interconnected together, but maybe it's not intuitive for some of us. So tell us about your story.
All right. Well, it's a journey. It's a long journey that is currently still in progress. And it all started, well, back in the day when I was studying for my bachelor's. I'm originally from Russia. And I was studying hotel and tourism business. And I remember working in a hotel and, just being good at it because I'm naturally just a sociable person, but really feeling like something is lacking and having this feeling that okay, I'm just checking in, checking out guests, making money for some people that are sitting up in their offices, and my impact doesn't go beyond that. And I just started craving for something more, for a more meaningful contribution to just the positive development of the planet, of humanity, so to speak. And I also had a good example of my sister, who is a vet. So for me, in my eyes, it was a very noble profession, literally saving lives. And then I also wanted to do something meaningful, just like that. And then this is when sustainability as a topic, as a sector came around. And I started discovering it on my own because back in the day, it was not a thing at all in Russia. It just didn't exist. And then I learned about sustainable tourism because I was studying the tourism sector. And I learned that actually the framework of sustainability can be easily applied to any sector, including tourism. And that's what motivated me to go study abroad. So I finished my master's in France, studying sustainability and management to get a more clearer understanding of what sustainability is, and also to have a broader skill set on management in general, so that I could apply it later on to, maybe other projects, other sectors. But back then, I was still interested in sustainable tourism. And that is why I started my career. So my professional development, my first job was at the NGO managing sustainability standard for tourism destinations. And then after that, I started working with another eco-label certification that's working with tourism businesses. And I've been working with them for the past 4 years or so as a sustainability consultant, coach, auditor, project management manager, and I've been involved in many different projects, including one in Kyrgyzstan. So you see in the background, it's Kyrgyzstan, a country that I really, really love. And that gave me a lot of practical knowledge about what sustainability means, in practically when it comes down to actually, practicing sustainability. What does it mean? What kind of actions do we need to implement? How do we go about it? How do we measure it? What is it for? How to involve the supply chain, and then so on and so forth. But at some point, I still felt like something was still missing. And my personal journey led me to the realization that what was missing was the inner dimension of the sustainability. Because nowadays, sustainability, well, you may already know it, that it just became such a big trend. Really, people are talking about sustainability from any pot, as we say in Russia. But then from my professional experience and background, I know that it's mainly only about practical implementations, like what are we doing out there, what are we writing down in paper, in our reports, what policies we create, how we communicate them. And we're not talking about the inner dimension of the personal development and who are the people who are practicing sustainability and what they are doing to make themselves better at the first place. So I realized that this is something what is missing. And we all know, those inspiring quotes. For example, one from Leo Tolstoy, one Russian author that lived in the 20th century, and he said that if you want to change the world, you first need to change yourself, and that also what inspires me. And this whole exploration journey led me to learn more about the inner development goals framework that is exploring the set of inner capacities and skills that are meant to be like a complementation to the sustainable development goals. But they look at the inner capacities that we need to nurture in ourselves in order to be able to meet the sustainable development goals. Because we cannot just advance the world without also advancing the inner development, who we are inside, what motivates us, what are our beliefs, what drives us forward, why are we making these decisions, and how and what decisions we're making. And then also my spiritual and personal development, exploration of mindfulness and meditation, and now coaching as one more step of combining personal development and positive change on the outside that we bring into the world, led me to where I am right now, which is ASEYA, the project that I started around half a year, 9 months ago. And so far, it's been an online community of people who are inspired by idea of growing from the inside out and bringing out positive change in the world. And we've been also exploring inner development goals as a framework, and just meeting together, seeing if there are any opportunities for collaboration, just learning from each other. Yeah, so this is where I'm standing currently, and still on my journey to see where my path will lead me later.
Yeah, I think you already touched lots of interesting points just from these first questions. The first thing it's actually, I didn't know you also started out working in a hotel, because that was also the same thing for me, the thing that actually switched something into my journey that also led me to mastering sustainable tourism. It is true that by doing it, you actually also see lots of things that are behind, as a tourist, yeah, you don't really see happening behind the scenes. Also, the approach is sometimes professional towards the industry. But another thing you touched that I think it's extremely interesting and revolutionary, if we want to stay into this world, is that instead of frameworks are extremely important. So let's start from this statement. They are fundamental in order to give a little bit of indication to everyone and go together into the same goal. But it's also extremely important to embody maybe these frameworks, embody these values, because sometimes inspired actions or action that you just do naturally are also the best one. Um, you mentioned that you have been collaborating and working with lots of also international institutions, right? In order to help other realities to go towards solutions that are more sustainable. I'm sure you have been noticing that, for example, each region, each destination, each the reality, sometimes, yes, you can provide them a framework, but it is important to really look at their specificality, what they really need. And I find it extremely interesting that all of this for you comes from within instead of the outside. all of this again, I also have a similar background to you, so I do have a little bit of experience over that. And I also see that sometimes the people who work in the field, they also end up pretty stressed out, pretty burnt out, because there is so much to do all the time. There is so much work to be done. And of course, if you don't take care of yourself first, then it's extremely complicated also to take care of the others, don't you think?
Oh yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. And I'm currently also taking a closer look at what is the specific challenges that change makers like us face, and specifically young change makers, because younger person, they have less experience just because they're younger, they don't have that many connections, they are more financially unstable, and they face more challenges, or just their challenges are different from people who are older than 30 or 40 years old. And this is the generation that I really believe in. So I really want to support, especially young change makers. But yeah, as you said, I absolutely agree that you should put on the mask, the oxygen mask on yourself first before helping others. So I couldn't agree with it more.
Another you actually mentioned the younger change makers. Is it a say mostly for this set of people, or it's mostly bigger? And just to take a step back, ASEYA is a community of change makers. Yeah, younger people, or it's a little bit of everybody?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the beginning, we didn't focus on a specific target group in terms of age. So it was for everyone. Well, it's still open for everyone, but naturally, it came down to having people more or less mainly in that age group. And now I've been on my own journey of exploring what's the next steps that I'm taking with this project, and I discovered this inner calling of mine to work specifically with younger people. So I'm currently exploring what's next projects to implement within ASEYA, to help specifically this age group to work with specifically younger change makers.
Amazing, amazing. Do you already have some insight, for example, in which you would like to share eventually? Specifically, I'm talking about tools or frameworks or ideas in order to implement a sustainability that comes from the inside and then eventually can reflect over the outside.
Yeah, from my personal journey, from what I see also and people that I'm working with, it is coming a lot from the connection with oneself. So being able to understand yourself and listen to yourself, and that is also related to the inner development goals framework, because in that framework they have 5 dimensions. Each of them can they include four 4 to 6 inner capacities. So in total, there are 23 inner capacities, and the first dimension is the being. So there we would find inner capacities such as inner compass, presence, self-awareness. So really being able to be and understand yourself, and this is where it all starts. And from there, being goes into thinking and relating, collaborating, and finally is acting. So even in the philosophy, in the logic of this framework that I really, really love and I really respect, it all starts with being, and then it goes through the whole thinking process and comes down to the act. So it's all comes from understanding yourself. But then also something that really, really struck me when I thought about it, the connection between the outer sustainability, how we are used to perceive the sustainability, that is out there, like the policies and the governments and the companies, and the sustainability when it applies to oneself. It's this idea of making a choice, giving the limits that we are bound by, So because in our world, there are limits everywhere. If it's not money, it's time. If it's not time, it's health. So we're all limited in one way or another. And then the sustainability, it's essentially about making the best possible choice, giving this limited resources and giving it like this limitedness that you're bound by. And this is how I see both outer and inner sustainability. So for the company, it would be what is the best choice to make in terms of business operations, given that we have limited budget and limited HR resources and limited time, etc., 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 and the same for ourselves. What is the best choice that we can make, coming from the connection to oneself and the intuition and this inner voice that is telling you maybe something that is going absolutely against any logic, and what you were told by the society, but you have this little voice inside of you that's telling you, okay, that is right. And just being able to make this choice out of what is possible and available to you. This is how I see the sustainability in both ways.
This is interesting what you're bringing up now. I'm referring into, like really getting connection with yourself and really listening to this inner voice that is telling you something that maybe will go very, very far away from what your context, society, working place even is actually telling you. And I feel it's like a topic extremely close to me personally, because it's something I've been playing with a lot since very, very, very long time. I come from a content that is so far away from my reality now. And for what regards me, but you can tell me your opinion about that. I've been noticing that whenever I take a step that is going towards more what will be my ideal reality, let's say, what will be, uh, more aligned with actually my true values, there is always this period of fear. Let's admit it. It's, for me at least, it feels like fear and deep uncomfortability before it actually feels good. Before it actually you're like, okay, this is why I'm actually doing this. There is always this moment of which you kind of have to really let go something that it belonged to you before you actually go towards the next step. And to be honest, I feel like I'm living this moment in these weeks right now because I feel a lot of emotional tiredness from lots of different things that have been happening now. And I reckon, yeah, it's this period of adaptation, but it's been the same for you. Is it different for you? How do you live that?
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you're saying. And I'd say I've had very similar experiences. And for me, it came also from it being my first experience, with, for example, building my project. When I started it, of course, it was super hard at the beginning just to, go out there and like make that LinkedIn post to announce it, like, oh my God, it should be perfect. Otherwise, the whole world is going to end, and then I created this emotional attachment to it. So I felt like, okay, this is now part of my identity. So I need to make it right. And I created these big goals for myself and expectations. And I was really pouring my soul into the community and organizing these events, also having a part-time job on the side, and keeping it consistent and making social media posts. Already social media itself, it consumes so much energy and so much time, but I was like, no, I need to make it right. And then it just started draining me. And at some point I realized that, okay, something is wrong. It's not going to the right direction. It's not like I realized also through this experience that um, growth happens slowly. It takes time, even though we really want everything to happen like that. You start a project and it just works. And sometimes it does. Sometimes it just works like that. But in most cases, it does not. And it requires time, requires adjustment of the way you do things and taking a step back to go somewhere else. But at the beginning I was really kind of stuck on the idea of, okay, I really needs to, make this community work, really wants to have like 1,000 of people joining, and why people are not joining my meetings, and and that was really emotionally draining me. And at some point I realized that, okay, I really want to take it slow, put a hold on regular meetings, because we had three 2, 3 webinars, sometimes even 4 events per month, and that was a lot. And for me, what you said, that this inner call, it first comes as fear. I was absolutely like that for me as well, because when I realized that, okay, I want to take a pause and just take a chill, maybe just write my thoughts in there just as a blog, and make events less regular, like once in 2 months or something like this. And first it was a big fear, because this Anastasia that had made expectations and plans was like, what are you talking about? No, we need to push through, we need to make it happen. And then inside I knew that I had to do what I heard from my gut telling me that, okay, you need to, chill. But it was so scary, because it felt like if I do it, then I will fail. This will mean that I failed. I didn't meet my expectations. I didn't reach my goals. So that means that I failed. And that took me quite some time to, come at peace with this decision, even though now looking back, doesn't seem so big. It seems like very natural and small decision, and there is nothing, it's completely okay that I decided to take it more chill, and not to organize so many events in a month and not to drain myself. It makes sense, but back then it was so scary. So I also had to go through, some emotional breakdowns and taking time to think about it. But now I realize that when I have this little voice inside of me telling like, no, that is the right thing. I know that I will eventually do that, what my God is telling me. And I hope, well, now I feel that I have less and less resistance every time. So this period of, being like, oh my God, and tearing my hair away, it's becoming less and less, because I just I just come to trust myself better. So that has been a lesson for me. But yeah, to conclude it all, I definitely agree with you saying that first it's just this big wall of fear that comes before you actually break through.
Totally, because I also feel like no, I mean, not nobody. People are starting to talk about it, but we don't talk enough about that, don't we? When you think about, starting a project or personal growth or all sorts of journey you want to take in, I feel like the sensation that people expect to be like a constant journey towards the top, like a constant thing. Well, I feel like most of the time is you're going to have a sprint, so a very period of lots of growth, lots of learning, lots of experiences. But then it's also normal to have a little bit of flat to really adapt, to really absorb all the things that have been happening so far and really allow, a part of yourself to go and this new part that, it's burning and growing within you to really raise up. Uh, I think you you surely did the right thing to take a break because again, you run your business, your startup for the first 6 months. We really went full in with communication, events, as you mentioned it. It is more than fine, I believe, to take a break, step back, observe what all the things have been done, and also, yeah, think about okay, what are the things that I liked about this 6 months? What are the things I will never ever repeat again in the next 6 months? What if something new that my intuition, as you mentioned, that is calling me towards to, and from there, grow grow more and more. It doesn't have to be fast.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And also something that I am now advocating for is the normalization of struggle and failure, because when we nowadays see, people talking about personal growth and developing a business and building like a positive impact project, it's mainly about, positive fluff. That is, okay, you do this and you will succeed, or you just need to follow the steps, or like inspirational quotes. And then we're not really talking about the struggles that we have. And for me, as the young person for who it was the first time building something like that on my own, I didn't know, I didn't know that it was okay to face it. And from, the stories that I would hear around me, it felt like if my project didn't, reach 500 members in the community and didn't start to generate money, then it's like, it's no go. I failed, So I'm like, no hit wonder, basically. Like, this is not for me. And all of the mental breakdowns, mental challenges of building it all yourself and being isolated, and having enough tools and having financial instability. This is something that we're not talking about, because I feel that people are so much craving for only the positive side that we really come to hate the negative. This is something that I've been reflecting on lately, that people just tend naturally to search for the positive, for the comfort. That is why this is so hard to go out of the comfort zone, because challenge, it associates with pain and suffering. But what I came to realize is that if you look at it from the perspective of the journey of a new experience, then it's a completely different story. Okay, I'm now suffering, I have this pain, I have anxiety, but I don't associate something super negative with it. I don't associate with like failure or struggle. I don't put the name struggle on it. It's just an experience that I'm going through, and this is something that I've been trying to practice myself lately as well.
Absolutely. There were two things I wanted to mention about that. The first of all, absolutely, as you said, the struggle can also be an extremely big lesson for you once you know how to observe it from the right perspective, isn't it? And second of all, I couldn't agree more. I also have the perception that there is also a little bit of shame around the concept of failure, around the concept of, challenges. And yeah, as you say, especially in the sustainability world, but God admit also in the wellness one, there is not enough for talking about that. About the fact that there are lots of challenges has to be faced. And again, sometimes it's going to be tech, sometimes it's going to be lack of team, sometimes it's going to be loneliness also as an entrepreneur, I will say, because there is not so much talking about that. And I will add one more. I know we mentioned it, but we didn't really go into the topic, but I also believe that there is one way of doing business, whether it's come from social entrepreneurship or sorry, sustainable entrepreneurship or other side, which is very rigid, very, like step by step, very towards the goal, a little bit as you were describing it before. But I also feel like that there's another way that things can be done. And I've been noticing that people refer to it as, masculine way, so the classic way of doing things, and more feminine way, which is more led by intuition, which is more led by um, connection, and also community based kind of business, in which you really interface yourself with your community, with your audience, observe, listen to them, and from there you actually start to build something that is made for them. Of course, it's going to take much longer time than just a business plan that you just writing down and then you take action towards. But in the end of the day, I feel like that could be also an incredible revolutionary way actually to make business, even in the sustainable world.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been also reflecting about that, and we talked about it before, right? A little bit. And I'm trying to explore it for myself, like having another approach to the way I'm doing things. And it also depends on a person, because we're built differently. And for some, it's really, really important to have a structure, and I realize that for me, it also matters because I'm a little bit of a chaotic person. And I came to realize that I do need to, practice self-discipline in this way, but I cannot function in a box. So I cannot just put myself in a box of rules or plan and just stay in there. I cannot do it. But still, some structure is really important for me. And then it also works differently for different people. Neurodivergent people might approach it differently than neurotypical people. But I also like thinking that what we see now in the world is more of a masculine approach. You want to make a business, so you just go out there and you see what is the need for people, or more like what is the that empty spot that you can fill in with something that people will buy, because that's plays on their maybe not so good motivations or like cravings, and they will pay for it. Or yeah, maybe even just a problem that you see in the world and you play around that, so you just fill in the spot, so it's not really coming from you. And then it's also, as you mentioned, having a step-by-step approach, having the a specific structure and just following the playbook. And that invites less of creativity, invites less of flexibility, and also that is more stressful because you made a plan, you need to stick to it. So I don't care if you burned out, you don't have time for it. You can delay your burnout until the end of the project. And the more feminine approach would be, as you said, following more of the intuition and having space and first of all mental space, allowing yourself to change the plans if something isn't working anymore, and allowing yourself to be more creative and more chill about it, and first of all enjoy the process. Even if it doesn't work in the end, you will have learned something for yourself. So yeah, I'm not a guru of that for sure, like not at all. I'm still discovering it, but I'm really happy to see that people start talking about this another, alternative way of doing business, or even just building your career, that is radically different from how we used to and how the society is imposing on us.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as I said at the introduction, we are here to explore, just to share ideas and see what actually, what resonates with us, what doesn't resonate, what works and what doesn't work. So it was super insightful, your perspective anyway. But I feel like there is always something that comes back in this conversation, which is at the end of the day, really being in contact with your alignment, really being in contact with your values. So, from what's been your experience so far, what are the best way for you to stay really connected to your values, to really refine your alignment? Because I feel like that sometimes, people also struggle a little bit to introduce themselves into this journey that then might lead them to something bigger.
Hmm. Hmm. What are the best ways to stay aligned with the values? Yeah, I guess with me, spiritual practice for sure helps. Absolutely. So I'm quite a serious meditator, meaning that I have regular practice, daily practice, and also exploring the philosophy that is close to me, mainly yogic philosophy. And now I also start reading more about the philosophy of Stoics, which I find close to Buddhism and yoga practice as well. So definitely building a practice that would support yourself in this journey, and that you would come back. And that is also for me this matter of self-discipline, because when you have a discipline, for example, for your spiritual practice, that anchors you. That gives you an anchor, and you know that you can come back to it at any day, at any moment. If shit hits the fan. Sorry about my French. um, then you can come back to it. And then spiritual practice gives you so much already, self-awareness and inner compass. You just start hearing yourself more. And then also this idea of choice, because at any moment we are presented an opportunity to make a choice, right? At any moment, really. You're buying yogurt, are you going to buy vanilla or strawberry yogurt, so to say? And then especially when it comes to building a business or your career, you have to make a lot of choices, big or small. And then first of all knowing, well, you're having this self-discipline in yourself, then also knowing what your values are, and then being able to remember about coming back to your values whenever you need to make a choice, so that you are not just driven by an autopilot of, just spontaneous emotion or just spontaneous reaction of your brain, but you remember that you can take time to make an intuition informed, let's say, decision.
Yeah, you touched on another topic that actually I wanted to introduce to the community as well. Uh, I like personally at the end of every month to do a little bit of recap of all the things that have happened and how can I go ahead to the next one. One question I always ask myself is those actions that I took in the past month are actually aligned with what I wanna, with my values, with what I wanna create, and those actions that I'm planning or I wish to do in the future are actually aligned with that. Because I really feel, as you said, like with the example of the yogurt, you might walk in the supermarket with sometimes the idea to buy, vegan yogurt with vanilla flavors, for example, but then you have so many different choices. Sometimes you kind of forget what are your values, and you might start to follow something that it's really not aligned with you. And I feel like more than ever in business, so when you actually are a young entrepreneur who's trying to go through, his or her project, or maybe you have just it doesn't have to be an entrepreneurial project, could be anything. Sometimes it's easy to see that, people claiming, oh, I reached this goal that might be also my goal in this way, taking this shortcut. And you might start to deviate according to what you see online or what you see from other people's stories, and then disconnect yourself from your values. And I completely agree that starting a mindful practices, this is actually can help you so much to really disconnect, as we said, the positive voice, let's say, your more internal voice is telling you, where to go. And this other voice, you can refer it to ego that is more loud and makes you panic, makes you be afraid, makes you rush. And actually, mindful practices help you to distinguish with who is talking in that moment, and every time you actually have to make a choice, you know where to go, right?
Yeah, definitely. And also, sometimes when you are making this choice, the one that is actually aligned with your values, it's not going to be the nicest one, and that is here's the trap, because maybe you make a decision in your example to buy the vegan yogurt because you really want to try to reduce dairy consumption, for example, in your diet, but then you come to the supermarket and oh my god, there is this chocolate dairy yogurt, and you're like, oh, maybe I should buy that, And then in this case, it's not the easiest choice to make. And then it's again comes to, standing firmly with your values and having enough self-awareness and self-discipline to say, okay, no, I'm going to buy the vanilla yogurt, which is 20 cents more expensive. I'm not going to die from it, but I'm buying it because I made this choice. I made this agreement with myself, and that is more aligned with my values than the chocolate yogurt, even though it most probably will taste better.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely, yes. And I feel like the more you take this small decision on a daily basis, and the more it is it's going to be to actually take it instinctively, automatically, let's say. So to close up this chat, do you have any tools, any insight that the people that are listening to us could start to implement straight away to start either to live more sustainably within and without, or to start to live more alignment in alignment with their values? That could be something. I know we didn't program it that. So sorry about this. It just came up. But it could be like a mindful practice. It could be, I don't know, a quote, something you read, anything at all.
And now you make me sweat. Let me see. Well, if we're talking about sustainability, so people that wants to create a positive impact, first it's good to understand what kind of impact you can create. So just opening your eyes a little bit more and maybe doing this exercise of circle of influence, really putting on paper what is possible and what is within your control to make a better, more planet friendly decisions. For example, is maybe your within your circle of influence to stop using plastic and really try to, whenever you, for example, go on a journey, take a train or plane, then pack your sandwiches yourself so that you don't need to use something that is wrapped in plastic. Or, maybe it is within it's your ambition to stop eating meat, but then it's really complicated. So, what is within your circle of influence, or make your family stop eating meat? That is really complicated. And then, what is within your circle of influence is that you can just bake some nice vegan cake every Sunday so that you slowly introduce something alternative to them without really being harsh on them and, jumping full in. So identifying what are the things that you want to change around you and what are the things that are within your control right now, and the small steps that you can take to get better and better every time. And then, yeah, for some people, really like some kind of better structure helps, making a plan, writing a Notion page and describing, if you're building a project, then really describing what is the positive impact about your project, who you are influencing, and how you would like to see your impact rippling over time. And then, really, my personal recommendation, sticking to your personal mindfulness practice, spiritual practice, any kind of practice that really helps you to anchor yourself and being super, super consistent with it. Because I saw an incredible value in establishing a daily practice, and it was hard at the first time. Like at first it was really, really hard to make myself meditate every morning, and now I'm also meditating every morning and every evening. And that was also really hard, because you're like, oh, maybe I should watch Netflix and I need to go to bed in 15 minutes. So it's really choice again. And I'm not perfect, so I'm also sort of speaking from my own experience, but these are the things that I would recommend.
I couldn't agree more. It is super, super hard. No doubts about that, but it really does an incredible impact. And from my experience, it really can start from 5 minutes of YouTube meditation, guided meditation video that you can find really anywhere. And then eventually, from there you can explore. But it really does an incredible impact. I was telling you before, I went on this prep work this morning and it really changed the rest of the day. And can we say one more thing when before we leave? Can we admit that even here there are some fluff around the meditation, etc.? It's not true that it makes you feel more relaxed. Breath work makes you feel more relaxed. Sometimes it's really hit hard inside and really change up and mess up with your emotion, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I think it comes from emotional self-awareness, because if you're not looking enough inside, then you just don't see this mess that is there. And then you go to yoga thinking that, okay, I will feel calm and relaxed, and in the end you feel anxious because you didn't see this anxiety inside of you, and all of a sudden it's like standing in front of you. But this is the beauty of it, because otherwise you wouldn't have noticed it ever. And if you don't notice it, doesn't mean it's not there, right? So eventually you do need to face the dragon to overcome it and move forward.
Absolutely, yes. And it's a skill that it can really help you in every single aspect of your life, and no matter really where you're going in this journey. All right. Well, Anastasia, thank you so much for today. I loved our conversation. It was so, how to say, just it just went through, right? It was just a conversation we could have had, just the two of us. So really, thank you so much about that. For those who are listening, I'm gonna leave all the Anastasia link just down below in the description, the ASEYA website, the ASEYA profile, and all the things that you can use to actually get into contact directly with Anastasia and learn more about ASEYA in case you might be one of those change makers and you would love to join our community. And with that said, thank you very much. I wish you a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much for this chat, for this opportunity. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very much, really. All right, bye then.
Bye.
Wait, let me turn off the recording. Da, da, da. Oh, from here. Wait. Because I'm on my phone and my laptop at the same time.
I actually never know how to make recordings on Google Meets. Or do you have a
Oh,
separate
really?
tool for that?